Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Escucha. I'm your host, Megan.
And I'm Abby.
And today we have a very important episode for you today as we look back at the results from the 2024 election. As you know, Donald Trump has been reelected for his second term, making him the 47th president of the United States of America.
And on top of that, the Republican Party has majority control over not just the presidential cabinet, but the House of Representatives, the Senate, and a 6-3 majority in the Supreme Court. All three forms of government are now in the hands of Republicans.
I found the results of this election very shocking. Trump won with a total of 295 electoral votes and still won the popular vote with around 72 million votes by the people.
I think what was so shocking to me was, of course, the amount of Latino voters that did vote for Trump. According to NBC, 45 of Latino voters voted for him in this election, which is at least a 13-point increase from the 2020 election when Joe Biden ran.
Abby and I did go out and ask a couple of CSU LB students for their reaction on the amount of Latinos that did vote for Trump, and here's what they had to say.
I think it's really disheartening. It's just, knowing history, knowing government, it's just really disheartening knowing that, the people who are marginalized and at a disadvantage constantly are voting for the person that will push for that rather than, someone that's better qualified systematically. It's just, I don't know. I can say a lot, so I'm gonna just keep it at that. It's very disheartening, and I'd rather not have relationships with those people.
I think it's kind of crazy due to the fact that this person really doesn't want most of the Latinos or even blacks or any other races that are white in this country. So it doesn't really make sense for Latinos or other races that are voting for somebody that doesn't really want them here. I don't know. I just think it's crazy.
I kind of find it ridiculous in a way because it's in a way it's contradicting yourself as a Latino because he has said in various of his rallies how he doesn't like the Latinos, and you coming from a Latino based family, it's kind of hurtful in a way. So I just can't.
What do you think about Latino voters coming out that strongly for Trump?
Honestly, it's very disappointing, but it's not at all surprising to me. I feel like a lot of the Latino community has conservative views, but I still don't understand that attraction to Trump because Trump has always spread hateful rhetoric about the Latino community in this country. He's made hateful comments about immigrants. He just recently had someone at his rally in New York say awful things about the country in Puerto Rico.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't understand why Latinos felt the need to vote for someone that hates them and does not want them in this country. But that's just me. What about you, Megan? I know you've been really distraught about the whole situation.
I am. I'm heartbroken and honestly disappointed with this country. I know a lot of things have happened in the past couple years that have caused disappointment, but this one truly takes the cake for me personally. As a minority woman in this country, I'm scared that my body autonomy rights are going to be completely taken away from me. I'm scared for the future lives that will be lost due to the lack of access to safe abortions, contraception, and healthcare for women around the country. And I'm scared for the violence that will erupt in this country during his presidency, as we can see that happened on January 6th of 2021.
I couldn't have said it better myself. The amount of people that just cast their vote, they cast their vote against women, against the LGBTQ community, against minority groups, and to me that is just appalling. And I'm going to be honest, although I didn't like either candidate, I was very optimistic that Kamala was going to win.
I agree. I don't think either candidate was best for either party, nominee-wise. Even with Kamala, I had some issues with her campaign. For example, I felt like Kamala focused a lot of her campaign on bashing Trump to gain votes from Republican voters rather than trust within her own party. I feel like her only campaign promise was, "I'm not Trump." However, she, in my opinion, was the lesser of two evils.
Yeah, that's how a lot of people felt. And it was very reminiscent of the 2020 election when so many, especially younger voters, we're saying vote blue no matter who. This is the lesser of two evils. We cannot have a functional democracy under a Trump presidency. And I feel that this time around, we just went backwards. And I know a lot of people feel the same. And just throughout election night, I was hopeful that the House and the Senate would at least turn blue, or at least one of them, until the GOP ended up taking everything.
Did you vote in this election, Abby?
I did. I voted in person on election day.
I mailed in my ballot.
How was that for you? Did you research all the propositions that were on the ballot this year? I mailed mine in 2020 for the presidential election, but I wanted the experience of going in person, especially for such an important election.
I actually really like mailing in my ballot. I've done that for every election I voted in so far, which is around 4 elections. It was really nice being able to do my research about like the measures and the propositions and like the different senators and stuff that we're voting for, and like filling out my ballot without the pressure of like the long line of people waiting, especially at the pyramid. Like,
oh my God.
If you know, you know.
I saw there was an hour-long line before noon on election day.
That's wild. But to do everything in the comfort of my own home was better fitting for me. There was a lot less pressure and I was a lot less anxious. It took me a while, like a couple hours, to research all the measures and read through like the pros and cons of each one being passed. So yeah.
Yeah, I was going to vote from home, so I began researching all the propositions that were on this year's ballot, but I ended up going in person and remembering which ones were which, thankfully. So it took me a little bit of time to vote just because I had to read through each measure and remember how I wanted to vote for each one. But I went before 8 in the morning, so there was little to no line. I was the youngest person in the voting area, but everyone was so sweet. All the volunteers that were there, they were very happy to see a young person there. They were all saying, "Thank you so much for coming out to vote. Thank you so much for exercising your right." And it felt good. It felt good to vote. Even if we weren't happy with the votes that we cast for the president, I am at least happy with how I voted for the state.
I think that's why so many people vote from home, especially just because like they're able to look up exactly what is on the ballot and then fill out their own.
Yeah. And although the presidential election is very important and very influential, I do want to shed light on what is currently going on in our state government, because to me that's just as important as the presidential election.
Yeah.
There are 2 propositions that I wanted us to cover today, Proposition 6 and Proposition 36.
So Proposition 6 was not passed in the state of California. Proposition 6 was supposed to eliminate the constitutional provision allowing involuntary servitude, keywords, for incarcerated people. Basically, using people who are currently incarcerated for involuntary labor.
Yes, slavery was on the ballot in California in 2024, and Californians voted to keep it. There are many states in the U.S. that use incarcerated people as laborers, by the way. Alaska being one of them. They use prisoners to primarily work on farms or in manufacturing. I also know states like Alabama, Arkansas, and Mississippi also use prison labor.
I honestly was shocked to see that this one did not get passed in California. This proposition doesn't mean people who are incarcerated work within the prison. It means that they're able to work for large corporations who want to cut down on labor costs. Mm-hmm. These people are forced to be put to work for something they cannot even benefit from because they are incarcerated.
Yeah, exactly.
Proposition 36, however, did get passed in the state of California, which increases penalties for certain theft and drug crimes.
Proposition 36 is pretty much a 3 strikes law. It turns some misdemeanors into a felony if a person has been convicted of 2 prior misdemeanors. So this can be theft or drug possession of up to, mind you, $950, and can put someone in state or federal prison for at least 3 years, depending on the severity of the crime.
Which honestly to me is just so wild because we constantly have people telling us that jails are overpopulated. And what exactly did you expect to come from this measure being passed? Not only that, but it also costs to incarcerate someone, as in tax dollars being taken out of our paychecks.
Exactly, which is why it was so surprising to me that people didn't want to raise minimum wage. But instead, California voters were willing to fund people for being incarcerated for something like petty theft. And petty theft, mind you, in the state of California is anything worth $950 or less. So if you get caught stealing 3 times, you can face up to a minimum of 3 years in federal or state prison in the state of California.
I just don't understand how a state like California that has been known for being liberal and progressive is now going backwards in history. Californians voted for slavery and mass incarceration.
And these 2 laws are only going to harm minority groups in California. Actually, it's primarily going to target and harm the Black community in California, who are already incarcerated at a rate that is 9.5 times higher than the white community in the state.
I agree. I did want to touch a little bit on Kamala's concession speech that she gave today at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. During her speech, she did try to reassure Americans that we're going to be okay and that there will be a peaceful transfer of power in the White House from the Democrats to the Republicans. I know for many, including myself, the future seems uncertain and scary. Her words eased the pain just a little bit, not by much though.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Just a little bit. That's pretty much all she had to say, aside from the fact that she did call Trump and congratulate him on his win, which I thought was courteous of her.
She's a bigger woman than I am.
Agreed.
How do you feel about her speech, Megan? I know we both saw it together. Me, Megan, and a couple of the DIG employees as well.
I expected more. I think I just expected more from her.
Yeah.
And her speech was only 10 minutes. I'm not sure how long a usual concession speech is, but she was late.
She was 20 minutes late.
She was 20 minutes late. The speech was 10 minutes. And all she had to say was, it's not going to be as bad as we think it is. And everything is going to be fine eventually. And I don't know. For parts of her speech, I thought, like I did find a little bit of comfort in it. But for the most part, I just wish that she had talked to us more.
Yeah. I agree that the American people should not feel discouraged, especially younger generation voters. I feel like we should not be discouraged of what this is going to mean for American democracy. Remember, we are still American citizens who are given the right in the American Constitution. We are given the right to protest. We are given the right to free speech.
Peacefully protest.
We are given the right to peacefully protest, and we are given the right to free speech. Your government works for you.
Your senators and politicians work for you.
You do not work for them. So anything that happens in this country, you have a say in it.
Abby and I are going to link some resources in the description on our YouTube channel. So for our Spotify listeners, if you could go ahead and make your way over there to see. Planned Parenthood is going to be one of them, and the ACLU is also going to be one of them, but we'll provide a couple more. I just want everyone listening to know that even though this election may be discouraging for some, please do not discourage it from voting in the future. Your vote does in fact matter. And the next election that we have coming up is going to be the midterm election in 2 years. And in that election, we should be able to gain some control of the Senate and of the House. So I know that things may seem a little hopeless right now, but things will change as long as we force them to change.
Thank you so much to everyone who tuned into this episode. We will see you all very soon. please feel free to follow us on YouTube, on Spotify, and Enya_LB on Instagram.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Bye.